Because oftentimes, especially if you're looking at weight loss, 1,200 calories is kind of that number that gets thrown out there. That's not enough for most people. There are a handful of people that, have very low activity, very small people, and that, could be enough. But more often than not, when I calculate people's needs, when we do metabolic testing, it's usually quite a bit higher than that, even for weight loss. Hey, this is Lisa Nelson, and I wanted to talk with you about underfueling, which often leads to overeating later. Oftentimes, as runners and fitness people, we are trying so hard to eat healthy. We're trying so hard to cut back, especially after maybe some holiday parties and some things that make their way into our lives this time of year. And we oftentimes don't realize that we're underfueling at times when we need to make sure that we're eating enough. And that's super important for our performance, for our energy during the day, and just how we show up in general. And so many times as healthy eaters, we're thinking, okay, I need to watch how much of this I'm eating, watch how much of that I need to cut back on carbs. Remember, as runners, as exercisers, as people, we really do need some carbohydrates, but we're choosing good, healthy carbohydrates like fruits and vegetables and whole grains, like oatmeal, like whole wheat bread, or whole grain bread of different kinds. Popcorn's a whole grain. But we're looking for those good, healthy whole grains. And we don't want to limit them completely. And where I'm going with this is usually when I talk to clients, they are saying things like, okay, I'm eating clean, I'm eating lean, like I'm cutting out carbs, and this would be more new clients before they know exactly what to do. But, really we get into this place where we are cutting back, we're trying not to eat too much, and then we feel like we're sabotaging all our progress because we sit down on the couch at night and maybe we eat too much at that time. So maybe the snacks come out. I was talking to a client today. She says, she eats healthy all day long, and then, the Raisinets or the nuts come out, and it's those really compact, high calorie, energy dense foods that we need those at times, but when we eat those when we're starving, it's really easy to overeat on those things. And so oftentimes what's happening is we are going into like a starvation mode during the day because we're trying to cut back. We're eating salads, we're choosing soup, maybe we're cutting out carbs, we're just eating lean protein and vegetables, maybe we're eating, a protein shake for breakfast and then something lean for lunch, and maybe even a light dinner. And then by the time we sit down at night, we realize we are just starving, right? Do you ever experience that? I know that I do sometimes, and I know a lot of my clients do. And so it's really important to make sure you're fueling throughout the day. So, first of all, tracking calories is a really great strategy. And why that's important is, one, of course, we all know we don't want to overeat. We all know that more calories, more energy than we need is going to lead to increasing weight or staying the same, right? But what we don't realize is that we need to get enough calories, okay? And of course, that's important for performance. If you're, trying to run, if you're trying to train, if you're trying to get into the gym, it's also important for our energy during the day and how we show up. But another side of that is that if we are underfueling, like, yes, if you consistently underfuel, like theoretically you would lose weight, but the problem is it often leads to overeating later. And the other thing that it can do is it can decrease our metabolism over time, which also causes us to stall out in our weight loss. So the reason why this is important is to help us, prevent that overeating later and prevent that stopping of weight loss. Or even if you don't need to lose weight, you still may be decreasing your metabolism in a way that later on you will have a hard time maintaining a healthy weight, because your body will learn to function on less and therefore want to store more energy away when you finally do fuel your metabolism. And so a couple of key things that I want you to focus on is Focus on getting a well-balanced breakfast, lunch, dinner. And then if you are a night eater, okay, for my night eaters out there, I like to have a snack at night. Plan yourself a snack at night, okay? And then stick to the plan. Part of why we fall off track is because we suffer from decision fatigue, right? We're making decisions all day, like at work, even if we're working out, or maybe we have kids, and we're making decisions for them. Whatever it is, we're making decisions all day long. And by the time we sit down for a meal, we may be tired of making decisions, okay? And so it's really important for you to kind of like pre-decide, like, what is your routine going to be? What are you going to eat? If you struggle with making healthy choices in the moment, or if you skip meals, you've got to pre-decide like that you are going to fuel your body with a healthy choice, what it's going to be. It's not that you can't veer off of the plan, but in those moments when you don't care, you need to have a plan. So I oftentimes, for example, I often work at home, not always, but when I do work at home, sometimes I struggle with like, okay, well, I'm not really hungry and it's lunchtime. And so I've probably got 3 things in my head of what is my kind of pre-planned lunch, right? And if I don't feel like eating that and I grab a protein bar, like that might be sufficient if I'm really busy that day and I might not think about it. But usually what happens is if I grab a protein bar, I'm probably going to be hungry again in a little bit. So I'm going to grab something else and something else. And it's a bunch of different snacks and it's adding up to way too many calories. And then I'm feeling less energetic. And, not that that's an unhealthy choice, but, I could have done better by choosing a well-balanced meal. Are you tired of stressing out over what to eat during the week? Well, so many of my clients have the same problem, and I know I do. So I created this full week full of meal plans. It includes grocery lists, meal prep guides, as well as nutrition information. So it's a great place to start if you're not sure where to start with what to eat. So jump over to the link in the show notes and join hundreds of other people who are already on their way to transformation. The other thing that I might do is grab, you might grab a handful of the kids' snacks, a handful of Cheez-Its or Goldfish crackers, right? And before you know it, you've had 3 handfuls. That's, more than enough calories for a lunch, but you feel like you haven't eaten anything if you're like me. So, then we're back in the snack cabinet, okay? And that can happen in the evening as well. Whereas if we have a pre-planned snack, like, if I'm really on track, I'm probably eating some Greek yogurt, maybe some dark chocolate chips in there, and, maybe some popcorn. That's a whole grain, right? But I'm probably going to have I have a couple different snacks, but if I stick to the plan, then I'm doing great. I'm feeling good. But it's when, I don't feel like making the popcorn. And then maybe, I'm grabbing a handful of chips or something like that that's easier and quicker. Or even nuts, which is a super healthy snack, but I tend to want to go back over and over. And so I know a lot of my clients struggle with that too. So just some thoughts around maybe think up for yourself 3 or 4 options of what you could have, as maybe 2 or 3 options of what you could have as a pre-planned breakfast and lunch, because those days, for breakfast and lunch, often we kind of like to stick to the same type of routine, and then dinner, a reasonable dinner, right? And then, have a couple of different pre-planned snacks that you might have at night, or maybe your routine is you just don't eat at night. That's awesome. Stick with that. But if you tend to have high energy needs, maybe you're training, you maybe do need a snack at night, especially if you're running in the morning, you might want to think about adding, some toast with peanut butter or a banana with peanut butter or something at night, maybe a bowl of cereal with milk, especially if you're getting up and working out first thing in the morning. So just kind of some things to think about, and just your energy in general. I have a lot of clients who come to me who, especially women in, kind of 40s and 50s, I'm tired all the time and, I just don't have any energy. A couple of things you need to be thinking about that goes along with this. We need to be making sure we're eating enough. So, because how much we eat does impact our energy. I talk a lot about how it's going to impact your energy on the run. Absolutely. If we don't have enough fuel, we're not going to perform well. But also throughout the day, if you're feeling tired all the time, it's possible you're under eating, and that will impact your energy. Of course, sleep is a big part of that as well. Like, make sure you are getting, 7 hours or more a night. That's really kind of like the average need. You may be able to get by on 6, but anything less than that, that's really expecting a lot from yourself. And, you're not giving yourself enough time to recover, which again, like if you are focused on performance or especially weight loss, when your stress levels are high, cortisol levels are going to be higher if you're not sleeping enough. So these are things that, are super important. Getting enough sleep and those nighttime routines. We got to think about that too. So get those, that healthy snack or stop eating at a certain time. And that's going to probably help you get more quality sleep. And of course we all know, screens off, all those things, but, think about what is going to help you get that quality sleep. And then in terms of energy, again, making sure you're eating enough throughout the day, getting those meals in, because if we are leaving ourselves in a deficit, we are not going to have our best energy. And then, we all know protein is really important. And so what that looks like is, getting your individualized calorie needs and macros figured out. I can help you with that. If you can consider metabolic testing or, working with a dietitian like myself. The other way to kind of like at least get started is to, get a free account on MyFitnessPal, let it set up a goal for you. Oftentimes those goals are not completely accurate, but it's still a good place to start. So that you at least have, some kind of a place to know, what a ballpark of enough energy for you looks like. Because oftentimes, especially if you're looking at weight loss, 1,200 calories is kind of that number that gets thrown out there. That's not enough for most people. There are a handful of people that, have very low activity, very small people, and that, could be enough. But more often than not, when I calculate people's needs, when we do metabolic testing, it's usually quite a bit higher than that, even for weight loss, okay? And that includes that deficit for weight loss. So really important to kind of get that number right. And then, I mentioned protein. So again, like getting your specific needs figured out is wonderful and super helpful, game changer. But as a place to start, get a good serving of protein at each meal and snack. Okay. So what that looks like is, around, 20 to 30 grams is a good starting point for each meal. Okay. And this is for a general healthy population. This is not a recommendation. Of course, check with your dietitian, check with your doctor. But assuming you're healthy and have no reason to limit protein, it's important to get that in and balance it with other nutrients as well, like your fruits and vegetables and whole grains. So I am going to keep this short today, but I just wanted to give you a little food for thought. And I will also throw in there a little encouragement if you are struggling, with that, kind of feeling like you're cutting back and it's not making a difference or you're lacking energy, make sure you're eating enough. If your performance is lacking, if you're not performing like you expect yourself to on your runs or in the gym, make sure you're eating enough, okay? Not too much, but enough. And if you have questions about it, please reach out. I would love to chat with you. Have a great day.